Welcome to the Nutra Voice, the podcast that cuts through the clutter of supplements to help you make confident and informed decisions. I'm Evelyn Reinson.
And I'm Chris-Maré.
And today we are thrilled to have David Foreman, better known as the Herbal Pharmacist, join us. Welcome to the Nutra Voice, David.
Super excited to be a part of this today. Thank you for inviting me.
Could you tell us a little bit about how you became the Herbal Pharmacist?
A little bit usually is like, how long do we have? Okay, just so you know. I'm going to keep it light, just to let you both know. So I'm a pharmacist, and while I owned my pharmacy, I got interested in natural medicine, realized that I was probably harming people more than helping with some of the drugs that I was dispensing, and migrated into this field about 30 years ago. And my mission since then has been to educate as many people as I can about the benefits of natural health and healing. 4 areas: diet, exercise, spirituality, and supplements. And so they can either get back the health they lost or keep the health that they have.
Thank you for sharing, David. Your background is really both impressive and inspiring. But today we're eager to tap into your expertise on immunity. My kids just went back to school and we're already dealing with the usual wave of colds and viruses. I want to stay ahead of it, but even with my expertise in the supplement industry, I find the range of immunity options out there overwhelming. How do I know what to choose? And how does the average consumer navigate through all the choices to find what truly works?
It's such a tough thing. As a guy that, I'm kind of like the encyclopedia on this stuff. I walk into a health food store and I am sometimes like, oh my God, I have to literally pick every bottle up. Unless it's a brand I'm already been using, I have to pick up the bottle. I call it spin the bottle, ha ha ha. You spin the bottle and you look at the supplement facts panel for what are the ingredients. And then with me, I'm a little bit different because I know if people are cheating. Just because it says with added vitamin C doesn't necessarily mean there's enough vitamin C in there to really do anything for your immune system at all. So, if I'm a consumer, it's paying attention to podcasts like this. The other thing is to really try to learn what brands, if you've used a brand in the past, we'll just say XYZ brand product on the shelf, and you've had a good experience with that product, I would try to stay with that particular brand. I would look for ingredients that perhaps are registered trademark in a little circle with R inside. That those things aren't cheap. So if I'm going to spend money to get a registered trademark, that might mean that I actually have a little bit of a better ingredient. I'm trying to encourage companies now to actually put QR codes on their bottles or on their packaging so people can scan them to get what science is in here.
That's a great idea.
So it's a really difficult question to answer.
So thank you so much for that. So David, just in terms of seeing what consumers are trending towards, especially within the immunity category, of course, if you've already become sick or you're catching a cold, there's usually sort of a trend towards getting something for immunity. But is there something you could recommend to take year around to support immunity?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few ingredients that actually have legit large studies done on them that do support the immune system. The problem I'm seeing, especially now that we're out of COVID, people have kind of gotten, the immune category went nuts as well as it should have or whatever. But the problem was there was an awful lot of misinformation of if you're going to take something long term, it needs to be containing ingredients that don't stimulate your immune system. They're supportive. So they modulate, is a really good word to look for. If, I'm a consumer, I'm looking for something that modulates my immune system. And so if I'm just coming down with something, then I want that stimulating. So high doses of vitamin C or echinacea, some of the more popular things that people I think are familiar with. And there's a lot of other ingredients that play in that. And then, if it's really more of the question you actually asked me, which is I want to support my immune system long term, then I probably don't want those. Well, there's no probably. I don't want those ingredients in my formulation. No matter how much you think they're awesome and great, I would look for, there's several that come from different types of yeast. There's certain ingredients that actually have been proven to be taken over time. As a consumer, though, I'm how do I know it's working? Right? That's and that's why the category has never really done well, because you can't feel yourself, experiencing. It's not like I take something for cognition and I might feel my brain a little bit sharper today, or whatever it might, or for pain, I can feel the relief in my joints or muscles. But long-term immunity, it's people have this aha moment 6 months later, and they go, wow, I always used to get bronchitis in December and I didn't get it this year. And then they're going, oh, it must be the, whatever that product was. But yeah, the key is like, if it says something like stimulates, then that's short term. And if it says supports or modulates, then that's something that's probably going to be better for long term. And there's actually crossovers. Like elderberry is one of my favorites for, especially for kids, has this unique effect of being able to like rev up the immune cells, production, etc., for that acute case. Like your kids, they come home, they get a sniffle or whatever, and you're like, uh-oh, it's going to go through the family.
Absolutely.
You can fire that up pretty quick, but it's also something that I've found to be very safe and effective long term. So here's the thing though, like since we're talking about immunity, sugar is evil for the immune system. So like just a few teaspoons of sugar will decrease your immune cells effectiveness for about 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, by 50%. So if you get a lollipop that's got sugar, I mean, that's why I always said around trick or treat, Halloween, or around Thanksgiving in the US, or, Christmas holidays. I, as a pharmacist and owned, pharmacy, I love those seasons because everybody had a lot of sugar and kids got sick. And then I filled antibiotic prescriptions, which my margins were huge. It sounds really sick and twisted, but the reality is like, you also have to look at what delivery format, and if we're talking about just immunity, like if it says it has X number of grams of sugar, then I would go like, wait a minute, this is kind of counterproductive.
That's a great point for our listeners. Paying attention to sugar content is key when shopping for supplements. Now, shifting gears a little bit, I'm always looking for the right balance when it comes to taking immunity supplements when I'm not actually sick. And it seems like there's always this question of, what am I trying to prevent exactly? Are we supporting our immune system for overall health, or are we targeting specific things like colds and flu? I think that many people wonder if it's worth taking these supplements daily, or if they're better used when symptoms start creeping in.
Well, I mean, anything viral, that's probably too general. I hate saying anything because that's just too general. But, the things that cause a cold flu would be the area that I could take something, preventative. If I'm listening to this and I never get sick, which is kind of me. I mean, if I ever get like some sort of cold flu, whatever infection of whatever source it is, I get really sick because I just never get sick. So for me, like, I'm not really the person that is going to be like stopping in the immune aisle. All right. I eat a really clean diet. I exercise. So like that keeps my immune system going really well. But the people who are listening to this and are like, man, Dave, I get sick, I get sick at least twice every, fall and winter. Then that's the person who needs to like step up and go, maybe I need to look for something to take long term through that season. It doesn't have to be year round. It could be like, and actually it's funny because, like you live up north, right? You live way south, but you have cold, like colder times of the year when people are inside. So that's really like, for me, that's when people want to do the preventative. And I know that's not a word we're supposed to use in our industry, but, if I'm taking something to help not get sick, if I'm outside during the summer, spring, fall, then but it's when we're trapped in those rooms with other people, colleagues at work, on public transportation, family events, whatever it might be, gatherings with your friends. It's when you're inside, you're trapped around people, that's when, you might be like, maybe I need to take something to support my immune system.
It's true. And then the heat kicks on and then it makes it worse.
Yeah, right. It spreads that stuff around.
Absolutely. So you actually mentioned antibiotics. So when you are in a situation where you've got a cold, you've gone to your GP, and now you're taking, medication for that, is there something you could recommend that won't cause an interaction with a supplement?
Yeah, so specific for the immune component, yeah, definitely. I mean, I mentioned vitamin C and echinacea earlier. Like those would be great. They're not necessarily going to interact with an antibiotic. Because what they're doing is they're actually working on basically boosting the number of immune cells that get produced by the body. So you're getting like white blood cells are getting all fired up. The ones that support the immune system usually activate the immune system, so it doesn't necessarily give you more immune cells. It just makes them ready to, do what they're supposed to when they come in contact with whatever that is. And then I'm going to just take it a little sideways on this one. So if I'm taking an antibiotic, not an antiviral, because we have antivirals we can take, but if we're if you're taking an antibiotic, then I always recommend people take a probiotic along the same time. And I'm thinking that's where you were leading me to, but just in case you weren't, I went there.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's so many probiotics out there. How does the consumer pick the right one?
Yeah, you're asking the guy that still has troubles with that himself, and I'm just truthfully, I'm the expert here apparently, and so I struggle with that myself. On again, for me as the consumer, and I said like I'm still learning a lot about the microbiome, and so for me, I look for I look for a branded ingredient, and that's at least my first clue of like, all right, they took time to change the funky little name into some brand name that I can actually pronounce, and then I'll do my own due diligence. Let's use Dr. Google. I'll look it up, find out what it says, and hopefully, again, hopefully there's credible information there. But I feel like if anybody's spent the time and effort to brand their ingredient, it probably is going to be a little more legit than just some generic named, ingredient or in this case, bacteria. So I'm sorry, I don't really have an answer other than what that was, because it's tough. It's a hard, as a consumer, I get frustrated, and I actually know stuff. So when I put myself in someone else's shoes, when I used to work with one of the large chains of health food stores in America, I'd be like, I walk to the shelves and I'm confused. So God, I used to call it, like I always said, it was Mrs. Jones or Mr. Smith, the generic name of a name. And I'd be like, I would be frustrated as heck because I need somebody like the Herbal Pharmacist to just tell me what to take, and just to stand there and gawk at the shelves forever. An immune category is really sketchy, to be honest with you.
It is, and I get swayed by packaging too. We discussed this in another episode. So I think before I knew the industry, I would buy into the marketing. I would buy into the pretty packaging.
Yeah.
And you think that that just because something is branded correctly and that there's a lot of commercials for it, that's the best product. But
yeah.
Now being in the industry, you kind of see that there's so many products out there. So, do you jump around and try other brands and things like that?
Oh, for sure. So when it comes to finished products, the things I'm going to buy off the shelf or online or whatever, I definitely have brands over the years that I've kind of fallen in love with because I know they do it right. But yeah, for me, it's like, I said it, I think, in the beginning, like it's to find that finished product brand that you trust for whatever reason. The condition you have now might be that you're taking something to help support healthy cholesterol levels or blood sugar levels. But now you're like, wow, it's fall, going into winter. I think I want something for my immune system. I'd go back to that brand and see what they offer. And then you have to be an informed consumer. So you have to read. You have to read stuff. Just don't accept, like you just said, you fell prey to sexy packaging and
Absolutely.
Words, and we're all guilty of that,
Yeah.
Yeah. And depending on what culture people are in, like when I go to Asia, like the packaging is insane. It's awesome. Like it's like, thank God I can't read what's on the packaging because I'd probably be buying everything because the packaging is really sexy. Yeah.
David, I'm curious. How do you think different demographics play a role in the types of supplements people choose? For example, do age, gender, or even lifestyle factors like being a busy parent or an athlete influence what immunity products might work best? And how should someone tailor these choices based on their differences?
Age-wise, there's some things that I think are a little stronger than, a 4-year-old would want to use. Some of the products that are available on the market now actually have done studies and from infants all the way up. So depending on what age, category your child is. And the other thing is, there's people that are averse to taking tablets and capsules, even adults that just can't swallow tablets and capsules. If I am in the industry and I'm formulating a product, I've been banging on this drum for several years. Like, you got to know who your customer is.
Yeah.
Like my daughter, and son, they're in their 20s. They're going to read the heck out of your labels. They're going to look for a sustainability story. They're going to look for diversity in your employment. Like, they look for everything, not just the ingredients. Like, my daughter would be more like, she's 23. She's like way more concerned about that stuff. And then and the other thing you mentioned, we were going down the demographic part. I also want to say, like, there's certain ingredients that are often used for immunity, like vitamin D, and depending on your ethnicity, your need for vitamin D will vary. So if you're you're extremely pale white person, you probably don't necessarily need as much as someone. The darker your skin gets, the more likely you are to have vitamin D deficiency. So when it comes to vitamin, and I'm a huge advocate for vitamin D for immune health. Like, that's my favorite. That's what I take. But I get my every 6 months. I actually get my vitamin D level checked. It's easy. You can do it at home. It's a finger stick. You mail it in. A week and a half later, you get your results. It doesn't cost much. Yeah, but like, that's because I live in Florida, and before this, I lived in Southern California, and I play a lot of golf. I would ride my bike without a shirt. We live near the beach in California, and yet my vitamin D level was like borderline low. Another great example is when I was living here in Florida, I had my talk radio show, and I had this guy call in, and he played golf like 6 days a week with his wife, and he had he's like, you saw us, we're like super tan, which you would expect, like that's how your body makes vitamin D, and he's like, but I'm deficient, and I was like, all right, so you play that much, you're outside, even though you're getting tan, I'm like, are you wearing sunscreen? He's like, oh yeah, we wear sunscreen, we don't want to get skin cancer. And I'm like, well, there you go. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're blocking the UV light. Yeah, it's bizarre how it works, but for those people that are listening now, this is what happens. It's legit. Your body actually converts cholesterol. So you want to lower your cholesterol, get more sun. No, I'm not necessarily, I don't think that's necessarily been proven. So, that's the UV light exposure through your skin hitting the cholesterol, your body converts that into vitamin D. So if you're blocking the UV light with a sunscreen, you just kind of cut off your ability to do that. So it's funny for me, like, and then I went up, like, I was thinking like 2,000 units, because I'm like, oh, I live in a sunny area, I'm outside all the time, and I was borderline low. So I'm like, all right, I amped it up to like 10,000 units. I got my blood work back, and it was like off, like I was like 30% higher than the top of the range. And I was like, more is not always better. So then I had to like play with it. And now, like I said, every 6 months I get checked, and my sweet spot is 7,000 units. Weird number, but that's where I am.
That's a great advice for consumers as well, to rather customize what they need. So just a disclaimer out there, the sun is damaging. I'm not saying to never wear SPF at all. But you do need UV rays to convert your vitamin D. So that's a great measurement to go and check your vitamin D levels, and then adjust your supplementation and UV exposure based on that.
Yeah, I mean, I love to be my own guinea pig. So for me, if we want to stay on the immune topic, but I always ask for certain things in my blood work. The average consumer may not know that, but I recently had some testing done, and I don't mind rolling the bus over myself. My red blood cells were actually larger than they should be. And so, yeah, right. I know. Yeah. Not a good thing. So, and it's been that way, but I finally figured out, like, I'm deficient in folic acid or folate and B12. But, a lot of people don't realize, like, there are a lot of tests you can get done that are probably covered by your insurance, or in my case, most of them, I have a really high deductible, so nothing's ever really covered. But no, it's worth it though, because like most people are magnesium deficient, so I get a magnesium test every year. So, I think the average person probably needs 200 milligrams, but like, why guess? Why not get tested? For me, I need to take 1,000 every day. But like the normal person, if they took 1,000 milligrams, they'd probably have diarrhea. Like, that's what happens with too much magnesium. But for me, like, my sweet spot is 1,000 milligrams. When I go above that, then I might have some digestive issues.
So since you mentioned that sometimes you adjust your supplement dosage, do you think others should consider doing the same? And how important is it for people to follow label recommendations? Or could there be cases where it makes sense for them to modify it based on their needs?
I just adjust. I mean, and I'm not recommending everybody out there just start taking 1,000 milligrams or 200 milligrams. That's not what I'm here to say. It's like saying iron, right? That's another really popular, ingredient. probably more so among women than men, but nonetheless, like, why guess? Like, get your iron levels checked, and then go from there. For me, I started this whole blood work conversation because I wanted to see what my immune cells looked like, what they were.
Yeah.
Was I in proper range? Your doctor, they can order that for you. It can be covered, so you can look. You're like, oh wow, I'm kind of borderline low. Then what can I do to help support my immune system?
Yeah. No, it's true. And I don't think people make the correlation between blood work and supplements.
Yeah.
Like people have blood work done maybe when they're looking for cholesterol and things like that, or just checkups. But those yearly annual exams could be a great roadmap to what supplements you should be taking or not taking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking my kids in to do that necessarily, unless they have. Like my daughter, when she was young, she had fatigue, and this is even before like her menstrual cycle started.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up that she was anemic, even at a young age. So then like looking at, all right, now I know, what do I take? And then hemoglobin levels don't go up quick. So 3 months to 6 months down the road, you get rechecked, and you can play around with it.
Looking ahead, what do you see as the future of immune supplements? Are there any emerging trends or innovations that you think will change the way we approach immune health? And do you think we'll start seeing more personalized approaches where supplements are tailored to individual needs or even based on genetic data?
I think the emerging market for immune health is going to be more in the microbiome than anywhere else, because I think the consumer is interested in that. And I think we can have the most impact there. Sadly, though, people are not. They're more of a, I said the pay me later thing earlier, like, which means you didn't listen to anything I said and now you're sick. Regretfully, I don't know why. Maybe it's because people can't feel it, but the pay me now, which is I'm going to take something so I hopefully don't get sick. I mean, look, I actually got COVID. I almost died from it, and I'm Herbal Pharmacist, and I take really good care of myself. I eat super freak clean, and I do get my exercise, and I do take a lot. My vitamin D level was actually where it was, should be, et cetera, and I still got sick. So I'm not saying all these things are 100% foolproof, but at the same time, like, I don't know if as an industry we need to do better education to the consumer to be, preventative.
Yeah.
The other troubling thing, and I said it earlier, but I'll say it one more time, that that whole thing of I can't feel it working. That's really a struggle.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing, that there needs to be better communication. So if I'm listening to this as the consumer, and at this point, even us sitting here, knowledgeable, we're consumers, right? So we can't know everything about everything. So it's really important for people to educate themselves. And then last but not least, one of the hindering aspects of this long-term immune support is it's also not inexpensive. There's that added cost. And I'll throw in, we'll talk long-term, near-term. So in the next year, 2, 3, like economically, globally, it's a little more challenging right now. So do I want to go spend $30 a month on 4 members of my family each? That's $120 a month.
Yeah.
That's not really feasible. So in my case, luckily my kids are grown, but if I have, a family like that, I'm going to pay later, probably. I'll wait and see what happens. And then if they get sick, I'll probably, but the other thing is, like, when we're talking about immunity long-term, what are we talking about so far? I just had this aha moment. Sorry, ladies.
No.
This aha moment was here's the aha moment. Here's the aha moment,
That's
right?
good.
The aha moment is we're talking about like cold, flu, and that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
There's a lot more to immunity than just cold and flu. Supporting the immune system means helping your body protect itself from damaged or mutant cells that are in the body. And we can't use certain words necessarily to consumers, but there are a lot of health conditions people have outside of cold and flu, fighting viruses and bacteria, that you need to have a strong immune system for. And that could even be all the way to cardiovascular health. If you have a weakened immune system, it can affect your heart, it can affect your brain, it can affect your joints, your muscles, all these other areas. So regretfully, the consumer thinks long-term, or we all do, we think of just that cold flu thing, and it's not that. It's really supporting, I have a family history of an immune issue that led to my mother's death. And I'm just leaving it at that. And, so for me, I've looked closer at what do I take to support. I have a family history of cardiovascular issues. So for me, like these are areas where I go, all right, I don't know if it's really a family history or they were just all overweight, obese, and that's why they had cardiovascular problems, whatever it might be. But like for the immune category, the consumer needs to understand like it's bigger than cold and flu. It's bigger than preventing bronchitis or whatever. And I know I used the word prevent there, but it's bigger than that because if we're always producing mutant immune cells, and the difference between someone who gets sick from that versus someone who doesn't is the person that doesn't has a very healthy functioning immune system to destroy those mutant cells so they don't cluster together and grow and cause other bad things to happen in the body.
Linking into that topic, I know that the consumers are faced a lot with verbiage like oxidative stress, antioxidant. So does this link in with that, or is it something completely different?
No, it definitely does. So, oxidative, I think we should translate what those are, right? Yeah. So, oxidative stress. I used to write these articles for a magazine I had, and I always said that like oxidative stress, better known as free radicals, they're basically mutant oxygen molecules, and they're like, I love analogies, so we're going to roll with this one. So if you can imagine that you've got your cells are a balloon, as opposed to a balloon that's empty. Inside your balloon, these cells, there's other stuff like DNA and energy factory and whatever. So the mutant oxygen molecule, or as I like to call it, free radical, and my joke was always a free radical is not a hippie from the 60s. Ha ha ha. Sorry. All right. At least you two laugh. Thanks for humoring me on
Pharmacist
that one.
Jokes.
Yeah. It's a dad Herbal Pharmacist joke right there. Or is it a bad Herbal Pharmacist joke? But anyway, so these free radicals, mutant oxygen molecules, cause little pinpricks. So if it's on the outside of your balloon, so outside of your cell, it's causing little pinpricks. And what happens when you get a little small hole in the balloon? It affects the integrity, so it deflates. If it's inside the balloon in this case, or where all that other yummy stuff is that actually makes the cell do what it's supposed to, gives you energy and everything else, it causes damage. So if it actually happens to hit RNA, DNA, those things that cause cell replication, now you're going to perhaps remake a cell that's damaged, and that can lead to other health challenges. So we take antioxidants. Remember we talked about mutant oxygen. So antioxidant. So the oxidant is the oxygen thing. It'll actually neutralize that mutant oxygen molecule in this case. So we know that when we have an abundance of free radicals, if they're not neutralized, that'll wreak havoc in the body. And can I use one more analogy? Am I getting too chatty? All right. So So the body's like an automobile, right? We take in fuel, we burn it, we get energy, and we get exhaust. The car's the same way. Put in fuel, spark, burn. Except in my electric car, I'm not sure what happens there. But anyway, I'm not a tree hugger. But anyway, just like a car, we take in fuel, we burn it, we get energy and exhaust. The exhaust in our case are, in some cases, these free radicals. So if we don't vent that properly, like your car, it doesn't run as well. And if you want to take this test with your own car, I wouldn't recommend it, but stuff something in the tailpipe of your car, and you'll find that eventually your car will stop running. That would be the extreme example of free radical damage in your body. But that's the reality of it is like if you really want your body to function optimally, you want your eyes to function, your brain to function, your joints to function, muscle, pick any part of your body if you want it to function, these free radicals, oxidative stress, whatever we want to call it, will definitely hinder that. So we need to take things or consume food. Like for me, I tell people to eat a rainbow. And I'm not talking about popsicles and stuff like that. Okay, let's not go there, or lollipops. Yeah, just in case. But no, like eat a rainbow. So eat green, red, purple, etc. So blueberries and cherries and strawberries and yellow peppers and orange peppers, and you guys get the idea now. Yeah.
So it's all the good stuff.
Yeah.
David, thank you so much for being here and giving us all these great insights. Would you mind giving us a summary just to the consumer to keep in mind, carry with them as they're bracing that very overwhelming immune aisle?
Yeah, definitely. before I get into that, thank you very much for having me. I will come back anytime I love doing this. I think the key takeaway is, I feel like we should all be looking at supporting our immune system, not just because of cold and flu. We really need to be taking care of it on a daily basis year round. And keep in mind, you probably won't necessarily notice anything. And then, even though you're doing that, you still may have an issue periodically, and that's when you look for those supplements that actually can kind of get you over the hump, so to speak. And my experience is that if you take care of yourself on a daily basis, when you do start coming down with something, the severity and duration are not nearly as bad as they would be had you just not listened to anything we talked about. So thank you very much.
Thank you again, David, and thanks for joining us. And that's all for today's episode of the Nutra Voice. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And always remember, in a world full of options, knowledge is your best ally in making the right choices for your health. See you next time.